Florida is all about the sun and tourists. Our image fuels the largest industry in the state, one that generates billions of dollars a year. But you might not realize just how long Florida's been selling itself.
Isn't it beautiful?
Statues are tremendous.
And the central role Tampa Bay has played.
Anyone who knows anything about St. Petersburg history, they were doing this in the 1920s with a man named John Ludwig, who was a genius at promoting St. Petersburg.
Ludwig was hired in 1919, the first city publicity agent in U.S. history.
There's something special about a place that has 1,000 miles of sandy beaches, palm trees, but also implicit in the Florida Dream is the promise of a better life. This was a very powerful idea for over 100 years. You know, we wouldn't be having this discussion if we were in Delaware.
My name is Jennifer Glenfield, and this is Hidden Histories, a series about Florida's untold, overlooked, and underreported history. In this video, we'll talk about selling the Sunshine State.
You could say the same about almost any era of modern Florida. Everything was oriented around growth. Growth is good, growth is going to pay for the bills, and how to promote Florida.
The state's economy grew in a mixture of tourism and agriculture. St. Petersburg sold itself as a city of leisure. That's how postcards and ads and northern newspapers promoted our region. But Ludwig, a newspaperman, knew how to get attention. In 1922, he manufactured a controversy. A fictional St. Petersburg Purity League expressed outrage at the sea vamps, women in revealing bathing suits, and called for the mayor to hire a bathing suit inspector. The mayor played along. The scandal hit the biggest papers in the country.
And this is really where tourism started to become popularized. It started with privileged globetrotters, but by the 1920s, you have people coming to Florida as tin can tourists.
In 1929, Ludwig convinced Goodyear to fly a blimp from the pier, a grand display on the eve of the Great Depression. The city later cut firefighters and police officers, but kept Ludwig, although with a pay cut. He worked until his death in the 1940s.
In 1940, Florida was the smallest state in the American South. Florida had fewer residents than South Carolina or Arkansas.
Federal dollars poured into Tampa Bay for the war effort, and advertising now boasted visitors could get their vitamin D and V for victory. Many stayed after the war.
The fastest growing, most dynamic state in our nation.
It was a new era. People had money and cars to drive on newly built bridges and paved roads.
Now you're not just luring a few wealthy people, but a lot of people who are going to be spending money while they're in your community.
By the late 50s, almost every household has a television. Communities began thinking about, well, if we can do a promotional film about Florida, why not St. Petersburg or Tampa?
Space Scout X-14 reporting on Earth exploration. I landed in what I later learned was the resort island of St. Petersburg Beach and decided to materialize.
Sunshine and antics were the brand.
These infomercial documentaries are being played at PTAs in Schenectady and Springfield. They're being played at Rotary clubs. I think I saw some of these in my junior high class.
My first idea of how the inhabitants looked was very wrong. They are called humans. And do they have fun?
One should also point out these portraits of St. Petersburg in Florida are really whitewashed portraits. They're obviously ignoring the black community. They're ignoring impoverished areas of St. Petersburg.
The city was segregated, including its beaches, pools, and resorts.
Racial segregation would not be mentioned in any of these films because most of these people are coming from places other than the South and might not come if they realize this is still a divided community.
And the view, an island in the sun, set in a shimmering sea.
And what you see by 1965, 64 when this was filmed, is environmental havoc. You have all this dredge and fill.
This lovely waterway once looked like this, lined with mangroves, the trees that build land.
On the other hand, it allowed hundreds of thousands, millions of people to enjoy the Florida dream.
Environmental destruction was not yet an image problem, but something else was.
In 1967, St. Petersburg is worried. The irony of ironies, they look at the city and say, oh my God, we're Gerontopolis, the first city of old people in history. This was beginning to happen because people were living longer. They had Social Security now, and you have new freedoms.
And there are times when we all need to feel young again.
By 1980, every state in the U.S. had become active in tourism development.
Family vacations became almost a cliche. In the 80s, National Lampoon made a film about it, several films about it. By then, it's firmly in the national consciousness.
All of Florida's theme parks rank in the top 20 most visited places in the world, and the state's population has grown faster than national averages every decade since 1920.
Today, we are a Sunbelt megastate. We're lurching toward 22 million inhabitants. I think there are 112 million tourists.
The government is still trying to lure people to Florida, but the focus has shifted.
They're after corporations to move down. They're trying to lure big money. Did we tell you there's no state income tax? Or inheritance tax?
Everywhere, there is something new and different to discover in the unusual world of Florida.